Hello, and welcome to Retail X's week of webinars, the e-commerce world review. Today, we're going to be covering the Global 2020 report, and I'm delighted to have an excellent panel with me here today to do just that. My name is Caroline Baldwin. I'm a freelance business journalist, and with me today, I have Ludovica. She's the retail analyst at Retail X. I also have Simon, the CEO at Ascendia UK, and I have Nile, the co-founder at Klaviyo. So over the next 35 to 45 minutes, we are going to be taking a broad look at online shopping trends across the globe. Ludovica is going to kindly take us through a presentation, picking out some of the most interesting insights. I'm really excited to get stuck into this. I don't feel like we have enough time to get into all the different topics that we could possibly look at when you're looking at the globe of online retail. But I'm sure we're going to see how COVID's impacted and many other trends. So we want to make this a conversation. So our panelists, Simon and Nile, and I might ask you, Ludovica, some questions as you go along, and equally Simon and Nile, be prepared for me to ask your thoughts and your expertise on this as we go along. Before I hand over the reins to Ludovica, perhaps all three of you might like to introduce yourselves to our audience. Ludovica, let's hear from you first.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. It was super nice. And my name is Ludovica. I'm a research analyst at Retail X, taking care of all the reports, country and regional ones.
Super. Nile?
I'm one of the co-founders at Klaviyo. And yeah, that's it.
And tell us a little bit about Klaviyo then to our audience.
We are specialized in machine learning and linguistics, and we are on a mission to democratize retail, particularly the discovery experience in retail, to provide relevant platform for all retailers in the world to ensure that the customers or the shoppers actually can find what they want. So everything we do surrounds discovery and the experience related to discovery specific to retail only.
Super. And Simon, finally.
Hello, I'm Simon. I'm the CEO of Ascendia UK. We provide e-commerce packet and parcel solutions to a range of UK retailers distributing across the world to all of the major e-commerce markets.
Fantastic. So a variety of expertise here today. Yes, as I say, we don't have a lot of time. So Ludovica, I'm going to hand over straight to you. Let's get cracking on the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. So the countries highlighted for this report represent e-commerce market at different stages of maturity and adoption. The global internet usage is set at 65%, and we saw an increase in growth since 2015. When it comes to online shoppers, North America leads the ranking, followed by Europe, Asia, and South America, and the Middle East. Africa ranks at the last position for e-shoppers. When we can see that the leading countries in e-shoppers are UK, Germany, and France, while Canada, UAE, and Spain last countries in the top 10 ranking.
There's quite a difference. So, sorry, just popping back to that slide. 91% in the UK versus 64% in Spain. Is there anything you can? What is it that we're doing right in the UK? Do you think?
Usually it's the population that is just more digitized, and it is easier for UK consumers or UK population just to access the internet. It's more a daily basis action, actually.
Fantastic, thank you.
If we move on to Africa, we see that throughout Africa, the digital economy is on rise. So with internet users projected to reach almost 50% of the population in 2020. Of those internet users, around 35% are expected to shop online in 2020. The majority of internet use is on mobile phones, 62% of market share. Facebook is the leading social media hub, followed by Pinterest. B2C e-commerce turnover of the African countries we analyzed is predicted to reach around $30 billion in 2020. We can see that in Egypt, the most payment methods used are cash, cards, and bank transfer. In Ghana, the most prevalent e-commerce problems are customer service, followed by delivery and logistics, and product quality. In South Africa, the credit card is the main payment method, followed by debit card and bank transfers. So Nilay, what lessons have we learned building a global technology that you could share with retailers and other technology providers?
Thank you for asking that question. We are still on a journey, but I'll share from what we have learned so far. I mean, for us, what we have definitely learned is that actually customers who are kind of retailers in our case, they do provide, really invaluable insights to us if we are ready to listen and adapt. So I mean, like in case of Clevo, for example, there is not a single feature in Clevo that is not being used by at least one customer. So that's kind of one of the key lessons we have kind of learned, and it was sort of in our DNA. Other thing that we are a Finnish company, but we are a Finnish global company, coming from Nordic and being very diverse from day one. And it's not just diversity, that it's something that we are now seeing the benefits of it. And we speak over 11 languages within our team, and companies spend millions of dollars to actually patch up diversity and kind of to run programs and so on. For us, it came inherent. Like from day one, we are diversity of everything, and it's not just about taking care of gender diversity or cultural diversity. It is about diversity of everything, talent diversity, diversity of ideas, and so on. And then kind of the third important aspect is that the mission, you need to have a cause. And I think our cause is to democratize retail discovery. And that's the cause we are kind of working towards. And I think for any other company out there, I think it's very important to have a cause. And finally, I go back to the first point that I raised, that to build a company, I feel that if you solve customers' problem, then they will solve your problem. So they would solve your problem as much as and as long as you keep solving their problems.
Of course, I just want to pick up on that when you were saying that building the identity and all that. Are your clients finding this very difficult today in the world of Amazon, when you can get something delivered to your house in a click of one button, and just standing out? Surely the trends that we've just seen already and that Ludovic is going to talk us through just shows that more and more people are shopping online, therefore there is more competition out there. So how do you stand out and build a brand identity like that?
Absolutely, and as you would imagine, that we are in the age of kind of some people say it as Amazonification, right? Mm-hmm. But when you look at the data of the retail, Amazon is by far the conversion data that you see, like for a typical retailer, and I'm talking about highly mature, even global top 1,000 and 10,000 retail index. If you look at that across the board, Amazon, this is not very recent data, but still very relevant, that Amazon commands about 72% conversion rate when Prime is used. And without Prime, they command 13 to 15% site conversion rate. I have hardly met any retailer, online retailer, who would kind of boast above 5% of site conversion rate. And the reason is, one of the key reasons there is the discovery is at the core of Amazon. And the innovation gap from Amazon to the rest of most of the retailer in mid and upper mid market, at least, is so huge, and it requires so much investment that it's impossible to catch up for a retailer individually. And that's the reason we have taken this mission of democratizing discovery for all retailers. How our identity is kind of revealed through our customers. So we keep kind of helping our customers. And one of the things that I have learned, that some retailers, when they come to us and say that I want to have the same experience as, for example, Amazon when it comes to search, that's one of the products we sell. And we usually say, do not copy Amazon, because Amazon has over 3 billion products globally. and you have 20,000 products in your store. You are a specific vertical. You are, selling only outdoor furniture, for example, or fashion. So it's important that you don't just kind of, elude it to just copy, certain experience or Amazon's experience, or for that matter, other experience as well, but rather really understand your customers, your shoppers, and sort of build that kind of true customer loyalty. And we are seeing tremendous evidences in the market that those who actually create that customer loyalty, they do keep kind of, business coming to them as well. And because of pandemic and so on, the access to the physical retail being so little available, I think that trend has just continuously growing. And finally, just very briefly to add, is this A/B test, we call it, meaning kind of you keep testing and kind of, harness the power of AI, but keep testing, ensure that you don't intrude into the customer's privacy and experience, but keep A/B testing, keep testing what works, what doesn't work, because for every store, I feel that they would have their own journey, and as long as they kind of stick to the basics of building customer loyalty through, providing really good, delightful experience, it is possible to be successful, even with Amazon being one of the players. And Amazon has done a tremendous job. So I think there is so much to learn and utilize that knowledge.
Fantastic. I wonder if a few of those trends that you've touched on is going to be coming up in the next few slides. Ludovica, do you want to talk us through some of the next trends?
Yes, of course. We're moving now to Asia, which is home to both emerging and mature e-commerce market. In fact, we see that internet use is fairly high, with almost 60% of the population using the internet in 2020. Just over 50% of the online population shopped online in 2020. Asia is in fact one of the continents with mobile device market share is higher than desktop, with 50% compared to 47%. Social media usage differs from country to country, as some social media are not accessible in some countries. With the largest population, Asia is also, as the B2C e-commerce market, really, really high. We see that in China, the most payment methods used by consumers is WeChat Pay, Alipay, and e-payment services. In Indonesia, the main reasons cited by shoppers for online shopping are promotional ads on social media, avoiding the crowd to COVID-19, and the need to buy something. And when it comes to cross-border trade, the main destination from South Korea is the USA. So, Simon, when it comes to sustainability, how can global logistic companies respond to that?
It's a good question. I think what we've seen over the last decade has been just an increasing level of importance on the topic. So, will the USA be in the Paris Accord or now not in the Accord and then back in the Accord again? Obviously, this year in the UK, we have the United Nations conference around the environment. So I think at a global level, a macro level, it's just become a bigger topic with a greater level of awareness and I think a political will to act more decisively, which is positive. I think that has quite a profound effect on the whole industry because, of course, we're all consumers, we're all shoppers, and so our requirements on our e-commerce retailers and stores is that they start to act more responsibly and come up with environmentally friendly solutions. And in turn, the logistics partners of those e-commerce retailers then clearly have a responsibility. And so there's different things that I think are going on. Certainly within the e-commerce retail space, there are lots of discussions that we have with our customers, lots of big brands who are wrestling with the challenge of to have one central global hub to distribute and fulfill products across the globe, or whether to move to more local hubs where obviously you have to have multiple SKUs, but you can get closer to consumers, maybe cut a little bit that final mile carbon footprint. So that's a big topic for e-commerce retailers. And for the logistics industry, when you're moving things from A to B across the globe, clearly at the moment we're carbon heavy as an industry. And so we have responsibilities, certainly for measurement and mainly offsetting. We do a lot of offsetting, investing in wind farms as an organisation, as Ascendia. But then there's lots of quite creative things that are happening within the whole delivery industry, whether that's interactive technology with consumers to minimise redeliveries, which are kind of wasted miles, or whether a conversation about consolidated delivery to lockers or post offices or pickup points to try and get that volume into one place to minimise the amount of trucks. And obviously for domestic networks, some great initiatives around electric vehicles and small city centre depots. So I think it's one of those topics where we're probably just scratching the surface, but there's a global momentum now, I would say, that e-commerce retailers and their partner logisticians alike have to respond to.
So interesting.
Okay, we move now to Europe, which is the most connected continent, with almost 90% of the population having access to the internet. Adoption of online shopping is high in Europe, with more than 60% of internet users having shopped online in 2020. B2C turnover is expected to increase in great part due to COVID-19's positive impact on European e-commerce adoption. In France, the most preferred payment method, delivery methods is delivery at home, followed by delivery at relay points and collect at stores. We see that in Italy and Spain, the most used methods is online payment, followed by credit card and prepaid cards or vouchers. If we then move to the Middle East, we see that e-commerce markets found in the Middle East benefit from high levels of internet use and mobile device access. In fact, internet use is extremely high in the Middle East, with more than 80% of the population having accessed the internet in 2020. Available data reveals that online shopping to be lower than expected with such high levels of internet use, with only 45% of the population having shopped online. Mobile devices are the most predominantly used for accessing the internet, with 60% of total market share. In Qatar, the most payment method used is cash on delivery. In Saudi Arabia, cross-border e-commerce share focuses on China and the USA, while in the United Arab Emirates, cross-border focuses on the USA and UK. So, Nilay, when in the Middle East countries, consumers used to prefer cash on delivery payment methods, do you see this changing over time, or will stay the same?
I think it will change. It will evolve because what we have seen in some of the emerging economies, they have literally skipped some of the traditional means of payments and deliveries that we are used to here in the West. So, for example, in case of India, we have observed that shoppers have literally skipped even the payment, like a traditional card and payment methods, but gone directly to mobile-based payments only, right? So it's a completely kind of a next generation in a way, which is kind of truly mobile commerce, we call it. And in terms of the delivery as well, I think that sort of changes with the density of the population and the demand. But this cash on delivery seems to be very kind of a common pattern among many of the emerging economies. At least that's what we are observing.
That's interesting. Simon, what's your thoughts in this area? Do you agree?
I do agree. And I think one of the fascinating things I think about the Middle East is the growth. So it's one of the, in our view, it's one of the fastest growing markets in terms of online shopping. And I think just to take the cash on delivery example, for me, it's not only something that's a little bit not unique, but it's kind of a bit niche for the region, certainly when you compare with delivery preferences here in Western Europe. And so I think it's very easy when you're sitting in London or somewhere and you assume that the whole world operates in the same way that you do. And so certainly domestically here, we don't talk about cash on delivery. It's not kind of a discussion topic, but clearly it is still at the moment in the Middle East. And for me, I think there's a kind of a broader lesson, which certainly we try to take from a logistics perspective, which is, I think, the days of saying, well, getting something from A to B with tracking, with a good level of reliability at a decent price, that's kind of just the basic entry-level thing. And I think the important thing, especially for cross-border commerce, for e-commerce retailers coming out of the UK or coming out of the US, is to recognise the fact that in each region consumers have certain preferences, and it's important when you're looking at cross-border distribution to try and come up with solutions that recognise that consumers in region A may want something different to region B, and it may not be the same as the consumers in your own home market. And that's the bit which I think is a bit of a weakness within the cross-border distribution business overall. And I think it's a way that, as logisticians, I think we have to up our game a bit to say, well, for deliveries to the Middle East, even cross-border, COD at the moment should be available, even if it wouldn't be on normal the UK stable of products. And that's something that certainly we've seen some of the more advanced e-commerce retailers in the UK, they're certainly starting to look at that kind of local, global feeling to distribution services. And I think that's a trend that the Middle East is a great case study of, but there's other examples in other regions of the world. You mentioned France, just the previous slide. I mean, it's one of our core markets, it's our biggest destination. And of course, delivery to a store or to a locker or to a consolidation point in France is much more popular than in the UK. And so it's kind of fundamental for the French delivery to have a home delivery and a PUDO delivery and to have a good range of options. So it's another example of just how to localize things, even when you're talking about cross-border. So it's a key thing, I think.
It's the importance of doing your homework. Of course, if you wanted to go into these other countries and potentially working with a partner like yourself, who, if you don't have time to go into all the nitty-gritty into the various countries, you'll be the ones that will know what works in each. And it's quite important because there are so many differences that we're all seeing just from this presentation.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, we try to make sure that when we're looking at distribution markets, one of our jobs is to really explore the markets and to understand those consumer needs. So that then we can help our partners and our e-commerce customers to say, well, in this country, maybe consider this or maybe consider that, depending on the local needs. It's kind of our job to try and do that, to advise our customers, 100%.
It's very complex. Ludovica, where are we going in the world now?
We are traveling to North America, which is considered a mature market, having very internet usage penetration, but also e-shoppers is quite high. The most commonly used devices for internet access are still desktop computers and also mobile devices. Out of these countries, the USA is a powerhouse of e-commerce. However, home to Amazon, the most bigger e-commerce marketplace spreading throughout the world. When it comes to delivery options, Canadian consumers have purchased more items to take advantage of a minimum spend free delivery option, followed by positive delivery experience. In Mexico, the most used payment method is credit card, followed by debit card and e-wallet. And fast shipping speed ranks first in the US shoppers' positive e-commerce experience, followed by an easy delivery process and good information about the products. So, Simon, how do you cope with customs duties and deliveries in the USA?
That's a good question. So I think the US, and again, just looking at it a little bit from a European perspective, one of my big lessons over the last 10 years has been, if you look at the US as a country, you almost don't do yourself any favors. And again, stating the obvious, it's such a big place. And you look at each state often has the population, the GDP, the square meterage or square footage of a European country. And so one of the ways to look at the US market is to consider the fact that it is a continent, not just a country. And once you do that, from a logistics point of view, you change your mindset a little bit. So you talk about customs. There are 3 different ways of getting things into the US in terms of customs clearance. So you have to make a choice between price and service. For cross-border, it's actually relatively straightforward because the threshold where you start paying VAT and duty is high. So for the vast majority of, I guess, global e-commerce, business to consumer, if we're speaking of apparel, fashion, electronics, books, and so on and so forth, it doesn't become an issue about payment of duty and taxes. It's a question of customs clearance. And most logistics companies should offer the 3 different types of clearance where you can trade between price and speed. And then more generally, I guess, getting into the US, taking into account it's a very big place, is to understand you have to get close to the consumers. So you need at least 2 entry points, maybe 3. I would suggest up to 5. There are a range of middle mile providers that do the heavy lifting to get it towards final mile consumers. And a bit of a nuance of the US market is that whilst the big US integrators and some local heroes certainly are starting to move aggressively into the home delivery space, the vast majority is still delivered by the USPS. And so I guess at a macro level, when looking at cross-border into the US, my key learning is it's not a one-size-fits-all market. It very much depends on that balance between price and speed, because you have to configure all of those options around customs clearance method, entry point, number of entry points, middle mile providers, final mile product chosen for distribution. There's lots of different variables, and you have to really, in our experience, you have to really configure that in the detail, because each retailer, each e-commerce retailer has slightly different needs.
Goodness, a lot to think about in the North American region then.
Yes. But a huge market, and of course, it goes without saying that the US-Canada trade lane is one of the biggest in the world. I think most people know that. But of course, just the ability of having a big English-speaking population makes the US a hugely attractive destination, certainly for UK retailers. It's within our top 3 destinations for that reason. It's once you put aside the complexity of air freight and customs data on those things, it's actually a relatively easy market from a UK e-commerce perspective to get into, because you don't tend to have so much of a language barrier as going into other places where clearly there's work to be done on translation and so on and so forth.
Great, thank you.
And if we move on with our journey, we will end up in South America, which is home to its own marketplace. Headquartered in Argentina, Mercado Libre has consistently outrun Amazon in the online marketplace run. More than 70% of the population has access to the internet, primarily from desktop devices. Of this share of the population, almost 50% shopped online. The most preferred payment method in Brazil via mobile is credit card, followed by boleto bancário and digital wallet. The preferred delivery method in Chile is shipping and then also pick up in store. In Argentina, the main reasons to shop online are because it is simple and easy, followed by availability and the possibility to receive the purchase at home. So, Nilay, do you think consumers will miss the in-store shopping experience? Because we saw that in Chile, they prefer to pick up in store. So, do consumers will miss the in-store shopping experience?
Do you miss it?
I do. I do, because I do not have the same feeling of going into a store and have all the time I want to try on clothes or just walking around. So I do.
I think it's an evolution. In my personal view, the offline retail will embrace a lot more online experiences or digital experiences, something that the trend had already started in a very good pace just before COVID. So you going to the store, I think as a shopper, I think in the future, you're more likely to actually use the digital experiences within the store that would then seamlessly connect with your online shopping as well. On the other hand, I think online shopping is embracing a lot more offline experiences. It is not uncommon now that you would see that book a video consultation with you in the store if you're buying a furniture, for example. So somebody's actually, taking you in the warehouse or the store and actually showing you the furniture. You're talking to a human. They would advise you. They would see your, how kind of living room, and then they would say, okay, this particular sofa might be more relevant to. Now we're going to send you the link, which you can kind of further observe, and then you could have an app through augmented reality. You can kind of see how it looks on your living room. So I think it's a combination. I feel online stores and online retail will have to embrace a lot more offline experiences so that what you miss and I miss as a shopper is compensated. Whereas the offline stores will have to embrace huge amount of digital experiences and also partly social kind of experiences that they need to bring there for you not to miss the digital experience that you are used to when you are actually doing online shopping. So I think it's going to evolve. I think that's how I see it, at least.
This area, the merging of those two is really what fascinates me about this topic. I just think that you can't just have boring retail on the high street anymore. If I can Ocado Zoom my groceries and don't need to leave the store, why would I leave my house? Why would I go to the grocery store? But then when I go to New York and go to the Nike store there, that's exciting retail. People want to go there and they want to spend time and they want to use their mobile with the store, and it's all interactive. Yes, but we definitely don't have enough time to probably go into that on this webinar. We'll need a whole separate one. But really interesting way of describing that, Nile. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the last part of our webinar is about COVID, and I think it's better to ask our experts what is the main changes they see and what they see in the long run, instead of reading the graphs that you can see in the slide. So Simon, what do you see? What do you see in the long run after or during COVID-19?
So I think, last year, from a logistics and a shopping perspective, just were seismic changes. I don't really remember years where it's just been so different. And I think at its heart, as the world, what we certainly saw when the world went into lockdown, there was just a fundamental shift with late adoption from consumers who perhaps weren't online shoppers, all of a sudden becoming online shoppers because they really had no choice. And at the same time, some retailers who perhaps hadn't put a huge focus on e-commerce actually saying, well, we really need to because our stores are closed. And so when you put together that supply and demand and that kind of what I call a leapfrog effect on the e-commerce penetration of overall retail. So what we then saw and what the whole industry saw was just a huge uplift in e-commerce volume, both in domestic markets and cross-border. Certainly last May, after most of the countries had started to go into lockdown, we were doing more volume globally in May than we'd done in November and December the year previous, which of course is the busy period. And it's quite, although the circumstances are obviously very difficult and terrible for so many people, it did force, I think, a lot of change within how we look at things, because not only did we see a huge amount of volume suddenly skyrocket domestically and globally, of course, the other key thing was there's no planes in the sky. And so when no planes in the sky, there's nothing to put these goods into to get them from each of these home markets into the destination markets that you've highlighted in the report. So I think that forced a lot of creativity within the logistics industry around different ways of getting things from A to B, chartering planes, different entry points, having very agile technology. Technology is such a key part of our business, and I think having the ability to switch and change routes, entry points, final mile carriers to just keep maintaining service for obviously the e-commerce retailers, but their customers, the shoppers, it really forced us to think quite differently. So that's been a profound effect of COVID on, I would say, the e-commerce industry and for us as logisticians responding. But I think what it means, I guess, turning forward to look to the future is, I don't think we're going to go backwards. I guess time will tell us. Hopefully the world gets to a better place over the coming months. Let's hope. But I think what it means is that that e-commerce leapfrog effect is probably here to stay. And so I think if you're in the e-commerce industry, it's a fortunate place to be, because I think the world is literally your oyster. And I also believe as well that cross-border is still, for most e-commerce retailers, not the majority part. And so I think hopefully a combination of that COVID bounce plus some of the regulatory things making people turn their heads to other markets should mean that the cross-border opportunities continue to look even more attractive for e-commerce retailers. And obviously that gives us as logisticians the challenge to step up and make sure that we've got the right innovations and solutions and agility to deliver those things for them.
Fantastic. And Nile, finally, just to kind of summarise, when it comes to COVID, what are some of the impacts that you've been seeing from Clever's perspective?
Yeah, I mean, echoing what Simon said, we also saw steep increase in the usage of, across the board. We saw the traffic increasing on our customers' sites in terms of using search and so on, and their overall GMV had increased as well. I mean, as someone said, like necessity is mother of invention, but how necessity arises, sometimes necessity comes out of turbulence. And COVID actually also brought turbulence, right, to many people's lives and businesses. Business has to find ways to survive and thrive. And I think, like, just the example we just kind of, touched upon, that, something that we were not even thinking about just 2 years ago, that you actually book a video consultation to a furniture store, is pretty common now, right? So we are seeing huge number of innovations coming out, and at least at Clevo, we see that we have to step up also our kind of effort into this. We feel that the new ways of shopping, even within online, are emerging, which are not confined to you going to the site and write something into the search box or go to the navigation. I think those things are there, but new ways of shopping includes via different experience that you have with your senses, such as vision. So how you actually handle images of the product, and somebody taking a picture and you are bringing relevant products to the customer, for example. Voice interactions, interactions via chat, whether it's via machine or human as well. Providing, many online stores started to see huge spike, for example, after 8 p.m. onto their store. Right. So how do you cope up with that side of scenario from your customer service standpoint as an online retailer? Many of the consumer brands, right, that like direct to consumer brands, have emerged as well, because the brands like you mentioned Nike and many other brands, I think we have seen tremendous increase in kind of customer interest in terms of direct to consumer sort of brands emerging and kind of uplifting their online experiences, who were traditionally only relying on the distributor network for them. So that's actually kind of direct brand to consumer is something we are clearly seeing as a trend, and not only just with a vision to serve those shoppers as a direct brand, but they also want to have that first party data. I think data is the new oil, as they say. So they want to hold on to that learning of the consumers. They want to learn how these consumers are interacting with my brand. So there's a lot of interest in that area, and I think social commerce has also increased tremendously over this COVID situation, because communities and people came together in the smaller kind of geography, right? Most people, at least like in the UK where I live, we started to know our neighbors much better during this time, and that also increased a lot of commerce, I think, within the localized community as well. So yeah, I mean, we are seeing this kind of very strong trends, but one of the areas that we continue to focus on is these new ways of shopping and how we can make the experience kind of richer when it comes to discovery of what I want, because there is so much to choose from.
There are so many trends that the two of you have pulled out because of COVID, and it's going to be really fascinating, I think, over the next 12 months, as hopefully all these vaccination programs go as well as they have, to see which ones stay and which ones maybe we don't stay with as we go back to whatever the new normal might look like. We have run out of time, but Ludo, before I let you just go over to this slide, I just wanted to ask you one very quick question. What from this this entire report is the one thing, very quickly, that surprised you the most?
It's how COVID impacted different economies, even in the same region. For example, if we see in Asia, Indonesian consumers didn't start buying more and more online with COVID-19. So, and this is a trend we saw only in very, very few countries. So I'm looking forward to see what it's going to be in 2021, to see if it changed or if there is any new trend.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for that. That's probably a good place for us to wrap up. A huge thank you to the three of you for taking part in this today, and to our viewers out there for watching. So it's an ambitious week for RetailX this week. They're doing 15 webinars in 5 days. So I believe we're about halfway through now. So I advise you all to head back to RetailX's website to sign up for some more in-depth information on, I think we've got some presentations on the UK, Europe, Spain, as well as marketplaces and e-delivery later this week. The next one is later today at 3:30, and it will be on Growth 2020 report in discussion, and we hope to see you then. But until next time, everyone, thank you so much again, and to our viewers out there, take care. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.